Friends at Channel 5.
This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer sitting in tonight for Dan Rather. Good evening. A serious trade disagreement broke into the open today between the United States and the European Economic Community, a dispute that could lead to more serious problems down the road and higher prices for consumers on both sides of the Atlantic. Bruce Morton reports.
Effective January 1st, the European community will ban the import of American meat treated with growth hormones, imports worth about $100 million a year. Today, the administration retaliated, putting 100% duties on $100 million worth of European community imports into the United States. Products like imported tomatoes and pate. That will double their price in American stores. The American meat industry cheered.
We support the administration's policy to retaliate very heavily on this.
There are two questions. First, scientific. Are the 5 growth hormones the American producers use harmful? They cite a series of studies saying no.
The parts per million or parts per billion that you find in the tissue that gets to the consumer is no risk at all to the consumer. There's just no way you're going to get a level great enough to cause any damage.
But some European consumers disagree and pressured the European Parliament to approve the ban. The second question is economic. Is this the start of an escalating trade war between the European community and the United States?
The
United States subsidizes its farmers to as great an extent as we do.
That's an old argument. The question is, they ban U.S. beef, the U.S. retaliates. What happens next?
The community has said that if this happens, they will be forced to counter-retaliate.
And the U.S. has hinted it will counter-retaliate. The administration is considering a ban on all meat imports from Europe, $450 million a year. What happened today isn't significant by itself. $100 million is just a tiny part of total U.S. meat production. But it could start a trade war between the U.S. and the European community, and they are major trading partners with a lot at stake. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
In Lockerbie, Scotland, the bodies of 5 Americans who died in the crash of Pan Am Flight 103 last week were turned over to relatives tonight as hundreds stood in tribute. Anthony Mason now with that.
British soldiers, Pan Am employees, search teams, and their dogs lined the streets of Lockerbie tonight to pay their respects as 5 victims of Flight 103 were the first to begin their journeys home aboard a disaster undertaker's truck. Over the past week, many American families have come to Scotland to await some word of their relatives. Len and Carol Johnson, who lost their daughter in the crash, today visited the splintered cockpit. Another family had left a wreath on the wreckage.
It's just part of the grieving. We just have to make the reality of it in our own minds.
Pathologists have been working for medical records and fingerprints, but many of the victims have yet to be identified. At least 15 more are still missing.
At the end of the day, I think we're going to be left with somewhat, I think you call in America John Does, and we'll have to face that problem when it arrives.
Search teams continue to sweep the hillside every day, and divers have begun to submerge into the bogs and lakes around Lockerbie. More baggage was recovered today. It's a suitcase that has given investigators one of their only leads in the case so far. Britain's top military explosives lab today began studying the suitcase and plane fragments recovered in the wreckage, looking for scorch marks, chemical traces, and shrapnel damage. Results could come as early as tomorrow. The search may go on for weeks, even months. But as the first bodies were sent home tonight, this small town stopped and stood in silence. Anthony Mason, CBS News, Lockerbie, Scotland.
Eastern Airlines ordered its mechanics today to inspect more than 100 older 727 jets in Eastern's fleet. This follows yesterday's emergency landing in Charleston, West Virginia by an Eastern 727 when a hole more than a foot long tore open the passenger cabin at 31,000 feet. There were more than 100 people on board. The incident has raised new questions about aging airliners and whether they're still safe. Mark Phillips now with more on that.
Federal inspectors today began examining the section of the Eastern 727 which tore away yesterday. The piece will be brought to a lab in Washington.
We probably won't be able to tell a whole lot as far as the origination of the fracture here in the field.
This particular 727 had been forced to land 7 times for mechanical reasons over the past 5 years. The plane is 22 years old, about the age when designers thought these aircraft would be taken out of service. It's prompted questions about this country's passenger air fleet. Just how old is it?
Average age now is about 12.6 years. What's more important in that context is the fact that about half the fleet is that old or older.
Are older planes by definition less safe? There have now been 3 incidents in the past year of serious structural problems with aging planes.
Problem is, we don't really know how to inspect for these things adequately. A guy on the ramp at midnight with a flashlight is not enough, and that's what we're finding.
So why are these older planes still in service? Because passenger demand and low fuel costs have kept them economical. Not only are American carriers not selling off old planes, they're actually buying more old planes.
Airlines in Europe, Asia, Australia, and so forth in the Middle East buy new airplanes and sell the used ones here.
Responding to criticism, the Federal Aviation Administration has recently begun hiring more inspectors and imposing fines. But critics say that's not enough.
Until the airlines are forced to get rid of these old aircraft, they're not going to do it because they need them to provide the seats.
Consumer groups have been calling for a mandatory retirement age for aircraft. But with a 5-year waiting period for expensive new planes, that would mean far fewer planes available to carry a public that wants to fly cheaply and now. Mark Phillips, CBS News, Washington.
And still to come on the CBS Evening News, Harold Dow on America's exploding prison population and Barry Peterson on Japanese nostalgia for the good old days. Not theirs, ours.
Feel your oats.
Post. Oats, oats.
Feel your oats.
Post. Oats, oats.
With new Post Oat Flakes. 0 cholesterol. Whole grain oats with oat brand nutrition. And delicious with a taste of golden toasted whole grain oats. No one packs nutrition and taste into an oat flake like Post. Feel your oats.
Post. Oats, oats.
With new Post Oat Flakes. Feel your oats.
I have just the thing for that cold.
Most kids think that medicine has to taste bad. But there's one cold medicine that relieves both kids and colds. Dimetap. Grape-flavored Dimetap Elixir. Recommended millions of times by pediatricians and pharmacists. After all, a cold medicine can't work if you can't get it down.
You like Dimetap?
Grape-flavored Dimetap Elixir. It relieves kids as well as colds.
Where can you find the strength to stop aches and pains without a prescription? In Advil. Advil contains the same medicine that's in the prescription brand Motrin. Yet Advil is gentle and it's safer to your stomach than aspirin. It's no wonder Advil doctor recommendations have grown each year and now total over 20 million. And the doctors are recommending Advil more and more every day. So why take this or this when today there's Advil? Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
More trouble reported tonight for America's aging nuclear defense plants. A confidential Energy Department report says it will take years and billions of dollars to clean up or replace them. And in the meantime, there's no guarantee the U.S. will be able to produce enough of a key ingredient needed for U.S. nuclear warheads. Pentagon correspondent David Martin has our report.
The nuclear processing plant at Fernald, Ohio, cited some of the worst radioactive contamination, will be the first to go out of business under the Department of Energy's plan to overhaul the aging nuclear weapons complex. The summary of a classified Energy Department report obtained by the Morris News Service also calls for closing down the plutonium reprocessing facility at Rocky Flats, Colorado. Until then, the report says improvements are needed at Rocky Flats just to, quote, maintain operations at an acceptable level of risk.
Many of the facilities that were designed with a 25-year lifespan have operated well past 30 years.
The 20-year plan to clean up old facilities and build new ones will cost an estimated $81 billion. But the report acknowledges taxpayers will be paying for the cleanup well past the year 2010.
The administration really, truly meant it when they said they want to start a cleanup, but they're not going to do it on these figures that they're giving here, as I see it.
The most pressing problem is trying to restart the nuclear reactors at Savannah River, which are the only source of tritium, a radioactive gas used in nuclear weapons.
Today, none of our reactors is producing tritium. Our biggest challenge is to move on an urgent schedule to make essential equipment modifications and improvements in training so that we can restart these reactors.
But the report warns that even with all 3 Savannah River reactors back in operation, they are so old they may not be able to produce enough tritium. The report, in effect, recommends a 50% increase in the money spent on the nuclear weapons complex. But it makes no recommendations about where that money is supposed to come from. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
In Gilchrist, Colorado today, 2 oil storage tanks exploded in a spectacular cloud of smoke that was seen in Denver 45 miles away. A truck driver who was caught in the blast is in critical condition with burns over nearly half his body.
It hurts. Sinus pressure and headache. It really, really hurts. A painkiller alone can't stop it. A nasal decongestant alone can't stop it. Sinutab can stop it. Sinutab combines the painkiller in Tylenol with the decongestant in Sudafed to give you more than either one alone. Sinutab is the #1 sinus medicine for a good reason. It stops the pain. It stops the pain. Sinutab stops the pain.
The large capacity Kenmores, America's best sellers. There have always been loads and loads of reasons to own them. And at these prices, there's one more reason. Only this week. Only at Sears.
American Family Publishers, the only sweepstakes in America that's made its winners millionaires for 6 years running. No other sweepstakes. Only the one with my picture. First to bring you $1 million prizes, $2 million prizes, and $10 million prizes. David won $10 million. Believe it. You may win the next $10 million prize, but only if you hurry. Beat this date on the envelope with my picture. Enter at once.
Next time you get heartburn, consider yourself lucky, because now Rolaids comes in assorted fruit flavors, still calcium-rich, sodium-free, and as effective as ever. Assorted flavored Rolaids. Relief never tasted so good.
Violence in South Africa's black communities has been escalating sharply in recent days. Police say gunmen opened fire with an automatic rifle inside a house in Soweto last night, killing 4 black men and a woman. 2 others were killed in Natal province, which is the main battleground in a political power struggle between rival black factions. Martha Teisner with that.
As night falls, they appear in the shadows, kids armed with homemade guns, spears, clubs. These are not simply children playing soldier. These are the frontline troops in an adult war to determine which faction will lead the fight against apartheid.
It's such a vicious fight because the stakes are so high. The stakes are, in fact, a role in central government in a post-apartheid South Africa. That's what it's about.
Because children are the most militant fighters in South Africa's black townships, it is a war of young victims, notable for the viciousness of its atrocities. It began 4 years ago. A battle between supporters of the outlawed African National Congress and followers of Zulu chief Buthelezi. The South African government sees him as the kind of moderate black leader it would like to do business with.
The South African government's hand is strengthened by leaders who openly reject violence as a means to achieve political goals.
Buthelezi says he rejects violence, but his supporters have used violence and coercion to recruit new members. In this house, 11 people were massacred, most of them women and children. In this war, fear is the only constant. Attacks against Buthelesi's supporters have been just as brutal. These women have run away in terror to hide. Would-be peacemakers like Archbishop Desmond Tutu and trade union leaders have failed to halt the violence after more than a year of trying. The government has been criticized for capitalizing on the situation, for playing on whites' worst fears, that this kind of bloodbath could be a hint of things to come in a black-ruled South Africa. Critics of the government believe that as long as blacks are divided, the authorities can stand back, freed from any pressure to speed up reform. Martha Teisner, CBS News, Peter Maritzburg.
Police in Brazil said today they are still looking for the prime suspects in the murder of a world-famous environmentalist. Police say the son of a wealthy rancher has been arrested, but the search continues for his father and his uncle. The victim was devoted to preserving Brazil's irreplaceable rainforest. And he paid for that, apparently, with his life. Harry Smith reports.
Despite the constant presence of bodyguards, Francisco Mendez was gunned down last week. He was one man in the most remote area of Brazil who tried to stop the destruction of the rainforest. And those who would like to see the jungle developed put a price on his head. These pictures of Mendez were taken just last month. I've escaped 6 attacks, he said. Even if one day I'm hit by an assassin's bullet, we must go forward. At stake is the Brazilian rainforest, home to half the world's species of plants and animals, plants which serve as lungs to an ever-polluted earth. This great, vast, beautiful place is being destroyed so quickly that some scientists say it will be rendered useless in less than 20 years. On some days, as many as 7,000 fires flame through the forest, making room for farmers and ranchers, and polluting the sky and adding to the global warming crisis. In the remote areas of his state, Mendez organized into a union the peasants who have for decades carefully tapped the rubber trees without destroying them. 30,000 tappers joined his cause, and their power forced the government to set aside millions of acres in preserves. We want the Amazon to be transformed into public land, he said, and the right to use this land be reserved for the tappers. But Mendez and his union were like David fighting the developer's Goliath in this wild and lawless land. Mendez is now just one of 1,000 people said to have been killed in the last 10 years by gunmen hired by ruthless landowners.
They saw his movement for land rights for the Amazonian peasant communities and for defense of the forest as a direct threat to their economic interests.
With Francisco Mendez's murder, his union lost its leader, and the rainforest lost its best defender. Mendez died trying to save the earth from those who may ultimately kill it. Harry Smith, CBS News, New York.
It's that time of year when grown-ups have more secrets than children. And every child is an angel for a week or so. But more than anything, it's a time of hope. Hope for our families, our future, and hope that we've been good for goodness sake. The best of holidays from Blue Cross and Blue Shield.
A lot of people can't wait until they retire. But I always liked my work. It worried me that when I turned 65, I'd have to leave. Rules are rules, and that was company policy. Then AARP helped get mandatory retirement eliminated. Now I can retire when I want to retire.
Bye, dear.
Not when someone else wants me to.
AARP, making a difference.
Don't miss out. Publishers Clearinghouse is ready to give away the biggest jackpot ever. You could win $10 million on January 31st, but only if you look for this house and enter the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes now.
You could get so rich so fast. So send it in.
I woke up with a sinus cold.
Pain, congestion, pressure.
I took new maximum strength Dristan. I'm here.
New maximum strength Dristan to unclog congestion, relieve pressure and pain.
And I'm not drowsy.
New maximum strength Dristan for tough sinus colds.
Congressional study says the Bush administration will need to spend $5 billion to build new federal prisons. That is one sign of the explosive growth in federal, state, and local prison populations. And already some say the overcrowding in those prisons is a crime itself. But in the first of 2 reports on the problem, Harold Dow explores why building more prisons may not be the solution.
They're being detained on land, transported by air, and even held at sea. America's prison population is exploding. So many men and women are locked up in local jails, as well as state and federal prisons these days, that officials from coast to coast have to hunt for space.
We've got 1 million people behind bars today.
as we go to the end of this century, we can expect that to grow maybe by another 50%. I would say right now the bad guys are winning this picture, because what's happened is we've created a criminal justice system in chaos.
The number of prisoners in the United States has more than doubled in the last decade. The prison population has grown 5 times as fast as the crime rate, costing taxpayers billions of dollars. And 37 states are currently under some kind of court order to relieve overcrowding.
I think the best word to describe it is critical.
This is the California Institution for Men, built to house 2,600 inmates. On the day we visited, there were 5,850 prisoners, more than double its capacity.
During warm weather, tempers get short, and they want to hurt each other. Sometimes they want to hurt us.
It's so crowded, ain't got enough bed space, got people sleeping in the halls, the floors. Well, you got more people, you're going to have more violence.
At the California Institution for Women, the situation is even worse. Built for 900, the prison count one recent day was 2,400.
Every day it seems like there's more by the busload that come in.
And that puts a great stress on the staff, you know.
Not only on
and
the
on
staff,
us.
but on individual
yeah,
inmates.
But I'm saying
we
they can't take care of our
stressed
needs,
out.
you know.
They can't take care of our needs. There's no way in the world. It's too many of us and not enough of them.
I wish I knew a solution. All I could think of is making a huge prison for women, because this one isn't big enough.
California is well on its way to becoming the first state with 100,000 inmates. But some experts say simply building more prisons is not the answer.
There is no state that has ever built its way out of an overcrowding problem, because if the sentencing judges and the police and the prosecutors know that there are new prisons, they're just going to push more people into the prison system.
Ferries and barges are now housing some of New York City's overflow. The people want criminals off the streets, but they don't want prisons in their neighborhood. In fact, the last 2 jails built by the city are 350 miles away, near the Canadian border. So these prisoners are real jailbirds. They have to fly to get to their cells. With more than 17,000 prisoners and more still coming through the system, New York is desperate for space. But at this hearing, officials had a hard time convincing residents.
We also have other construction, 2,200 more beds planned for Rikers Island, in addition to the discussion we're going to have tonight about the 1,000-bed jail.
Send them back to Sing Sing prison.
During the campaign, President-elect Bush suggested turning outdated military installations into prisons. In Maine, it's already been done. The barracks of this former Air Force base is a minimum security lockup for 100 men.
I think it's one of several answers. I don't think it's an answer by itself.
The defendant is sentenced to 4 months.
Officials estimate that more than 75% of inmates today are there because of drugs or alcohol. And because of overcrowding, the drug offenders are being locked up with hardened criminals, serving time for murder and robbery.
You won't make it in a cell with me. If you come through here, brother, you understand? And finish your time. When you come out, you ain't gonna be the same. Not no more. You won't be the same no more.
Tomorrow, why you would not want to share a cell with someone like inmate C70600. Harold Dow, CBS News, Vacaville, California.
Glenn McCarthy, the legendary Texas oil man who is called the King of the Wildcatters, is dead at the age of 81. McCarthy, who was the inspiration for one of the characters in the novel and later the movie Giant, died yesterday in a Houston nursing home. The opening of McCarthy's $21 million Shamrock Hotel on St. Patrick's Day in 1949 attracted national attention, a trainload of movie stars, and more than 100 multimillionaires. The hotel was torn down last year. Movie director Hal Ashby died today of cancer in his Malibu home. The 59-year-old Ashby directed Coming Home and Being There and won an Academy Award for editing In the Heat of the Night.
Michelle Miller suffers from frequent sinus headaches.
The pain is all in here. It's a constant ache and pressure. You can feel like your eyes want to just burst.
That's when you need Tylenol Sinus with the maximum strength of Tylenol pain reliever to help knock out sinus pain and the maximum amount of decongestant to break up sinus pressure fast.
There is no pressure in my eyes. There is no pain. I mean, everything's great.
Maximum strength Tylenol Sinus medication. It's stronger than sinus headaches and it won't make you drowsy.
I won $1 million in Publishers Clearinghouse.
We want even bigger, $10 million.
Now you can win in the biggest Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes ever. $10 million could be yours if you hurry. We're announcing more winning numbers, more prizes than ever before right on TV. One entry now is good for 5 giant prizes, even $10 million, January 31st.
You can win $10 million too.
Just look for this house and enter the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes.
Come on, send it in.
Reach past Kellogg's and Post for the best tasting raisin brand, Raisin Nut Brand. It's got juicy raisins rolled in crushed almonds.
Reach for the stripes, come on, reach for the stripes and get the best taste, Raisin Nut Brand.
A little exercise never hurts, and neither does eating right, especially when it's Sunsweet pitted prunes with yogurt. Rounder, plumper Sunsweet. So good tasting, and so good for you.
Finally tonight, we answer the question, what's the latest thing to turn on Tokyo? And the answer is the good old days of the 1950s, not in Japan, but in America, when every car had tail fins and every boy had duck tails and every skirt had a little poodle on it. Barry Peterson now with the story.
It's Surf City, Tokyo, where one American export the Japanese are buying is American nostalgia. At the nightclub Lollipop, you can dance to the oldies. Just keep those blue suede shoes off the Elvis display on the floor. Or you and your baby can stroll down memory lane at shops with very modern price tags. A jukebox for $14,000. A gas pump for about $5,000. And remember those old gas guzzlers? They're hot too. The Japanese, who have little interest in new American cars, will pay up to $50,000 for a showroom fresh, old Cadillac. And why is today's strongest economic power increasingly daydreaming about yesterday's golden age in America? One theory, that the Japanese are unsure how to handle world leadership and want to learn from America's past.
This was a time when America was shining. America was strong, and we had just to emulate the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, we greatly present here the Platters.
Older Japanese pay high prices to see the real oldies but goodies. So while some affluent Japanese are buying into America today, the love affair in Japan is with America's yesterday. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Tokyo.
That's the news. Bob Schieffer sitting in tonight for Dan Rather.
Quick, guess who's been called the best morning host? CBS This Morning's Harry Smith. Do our viewers know something you don't? Watch CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.